This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. There is something happening quietly beneath the surface, something more dangerous than any headline has captured. A system is shifting, and the consequences of this shift will not reveal themselves immediately. In fact, you may not even recognize the magnitude of what's unfolding until it's too late. But that's the nature of this systemic failure. It operates with a low hum until the machinery breaks. This is the kind of moment where history shifts unnoticed, where the global balance is reconfigured, and it's happening right now. A resource is at the center of this shift, and its extraction is no longer a matter of market forces or diplomacy. It's now a matter of force that is changing the course of entire nations, reshaping borders and futures alike. You're going to want to pay attention to how this unfolds. The world as we know it is no longer shaped by ideologies or diplomacy, but by something far more fundamental, something we are only just beginning to understand. It's not about personalities. It's not about what you see in the headlines. It's about control, raw control over something the world cannot function without. The system we are living in right now is one where a few powerful entities dictate not just policy, but the very flow of resources that sustain life. And it's a system that doesn't just bend the rules, it rewrites them. At the heart of this system is a singular force, the control of oil. That's right, oil. The commodity that ties nations together, that powers industries, that keeps economies afloat. The reality is stark. The nations that control this resource don't just influence the global market, they control it. The power of oil isn't just in its energy, it's in the leverage it provides, the ability to create scarcity, the ability to flood the market. This is not a supply-demand equation anymore. It's a game of global manipulation. And right now, this system is shifting, just as quietly as it began, but the stakes have never been higher. The world's most critical resources are now controlled through force, and you need to see how deep this goes. Now, think back to a time when things felt more stable. It wasn't perfect, but it was familiar. You could rely on the ebb and flow of markets, the negotiation of deals, the occasional conflict, but at least it followed a rhythm. Now, look at what's happening today. The slow, creeping changes in the background. Things you might have missed, things we've accepted as the new normal. But these shifts are more dangerous than anything we've seen before. They've happened so gradually, so subtly, that we've let them pass without fully understanding their implications. Before, resources were managed by states. Today, they're managed by a few powerful corporations and military forces who have realized something critical: the world can't function without their direct control. And that's the silent shift. The transformation of global power into something darker, more concentrated. We're no longer just talking about supply chains or diplomatic trade agreements. We're talking about total domination of the very resources that sustain us. And we've let it happen without questioning it. But this isn't just about oil or energy. It's about sovereignty itself, who controls it, and who will be left with nothing. This isn't a distant concern. It's happening now. And the real question is, what happens when this shift fully takes hold? We've seen the profits. We've seen the oil flow. But here's the next shock. The consequences are already starting to spiral out of control. And they're not just affecting Venezuela. They're affecting the whole region. Cuba, the once thriving partner to Venezuela, is on the verge of collapse. It's not just a secondary consequence. It's a direct result times of the U.S. intervention. You see, Cuba relied on Venezuela for oil, for survival. And now, with Venezuela's resources seized, Cuba has nothing left. This is how you break a geopolitical alliance without firing a shot, sever the lifeline, and watch the dominoes fall. But the impact goes deeper. When Cuba's system collapses, it's not just an economic failure, it's a security crisis. The Cuban state, weakened and isolated, becomes a powder keg in the Caribbean, and the world is watching. But no one is doing anything to stop it. This is what happens when you start to pull the threads of an international system apart. It's never just about one nation, it's a chain reaction. And it's already begun. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Because this isn't just about distant nations. This is about you. The price you pay, the system that's shifting right beneath your feet, it's already here, and it's already affecting your life. You may not feel the immediate consequences, but think about this. As global oil prices plummet, as the markets flood with cheap energy, asterisk, someone is paying for that asterisk. It's not just the military or the corporations making out like bandits. It's the people, the ones who don't have the power to control their own resources. What happens when entire populations are displaced, their economies gutted, their sovereignty taken from them? They don't just lose their way of life, they lose their voice. And for you? For the average citizen in places like the US, this momentary stability, the lower gas prices, the cheap goods, comes at the cost of someone else's freedom, someone else's future. You might feel relief now, but the question is, what happens when this system collapses under its own weight, when it's no longer sustainable? This is where it gets personal, because the ripple effects will eventually touch everyone. Want to see how far this goes? This isn't just about one country, one resource, or even one region. This is a global system in motion, a shift so profound that it's impossible to ignore. The ripple effects of what's happening in Venezuela are already reaching across borders, affecting countries that seem far removed from this immediate crisis. Take Cuba, for instance. What happens there when the Venezuelan lifeline is severed? A destabilized Cuba isn't just a local problem, it's a problem for the entire hemisphere. A weakened Cuba leads to greater migration pressures, higher risks of conflict, and shifting alliances. And that's just the beginning. Look further east. The Middle East, already on a razor's edge, could be destabilized by the very same forces that are being unleashed in Venezuela. Control over energy flows doesn't just give leverage over the global economy, it gives control over entire regions. And when that control is concentrated in the hands of just a few, the balance of power tips dramatically. These aren't isolated incidents, they're linked and they're spreading. You're watching the early stages of a geopolitical transformation, one that could reshape global alliances, trade routes, and even the future of military power. And the question isn't if times these changes will reach you, it's times when asterisk, when will the full extent of this system's fragility become impossible to ignore? The ripple effects are accelerating, and you're in the middle of it. Now, let's look ahead. What happens when this system reaches its full potential? What will the future look like as this unchecked cycle accelerates? There are three potential paths before us, three futures that could unfold, and none of them are predictable. First, we have asterisk, asterisk, adjustment, asterisk, asterisk. In this scenario, the system finds a balance, resources continue to flow, markets stabilize, and the new world order becomes entrenched. It's a managed reality where power remains concentrated, but global tensions ease. Things might seem stable on the surface, but at what cost? The price for stability may be a permanent erosion of sovereignty, with nations becoming nothing more than assets to be managed. Second, there's asterisk, asterisk, erosion, asterisk, asterisk. The system begins to crack under the weight of its own complexity. Small, seemingly insignificant crises start to pile up, destabilizing the very framework holding it all together. Countries, businesses, and individuals will start to see the consequences of this system manifest in more obvious, disruptive ways. The global order becomes unmanageable, and the economic house of cards teeters dangerously close to collapse. Lastly, we face asterisk, asterisk, rupture, asterisk, asterisk. This is the most extreme path where the system completely fails, triggering widespread collapse. Global conflicts explode, resource wars escalate, and the very foundation of international cooperation shatters. This would be a world where no one is in control, where chaos reigns, and everything we thought was stable crumbles. The consequences are unimaginable, and the future of power itself is uncertain. So, what will it be? A managed system, a slow erosion, or an explosive rupture? The system is accelerating, but which way it will turn is still anyone's guess. We've watched as the gears of this global machine turn slowly, quietly, but with growing momentum. We've seen the resource wars, the shifting alliances, the military interventions. And we've seen how quickly things can unravel when control is concentrated in the hands of the few. But we're not at the end of this story, not even close. The system we've built is fragile, and yet it's still accelerating. The future remains unwritten, but the path forward is clear. The world is heading toward a reckoning. Whether it's a controlled adjustment, a slow erosion, or a full-blown rupture, the outcome is inevitable. And the question now is, how long can this structure hold before it collapses in on itself? The answers are out there, but you won't get them in one sitting. This is only the beginning. If you want to understand what's really happening and what happens next, you'll need to keep following, because the next chapter is already beginning and you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. This story isn't over yet.